Are you originally from Sacramento, sir?
No. Well, originally I was born in Reno, Nevada. We moved to Sacramento when I was about 4.5 years old.
Yeah.
And lived out in the Pocket area, and then eventually moved to Orangevale.
Okay. And I know you were only 4 at the time, but do you have Reno, Nevada pride?
Not really.
Yeah.
I know the area because my grandma lived there. And
Yeah.
I used to visit her and my uncles all the time. But other than the visits I had with her, really no ties to the area because I was so young.
Yeah. And why were you moving around so much?
Actually, my dad was in the grocery store business.
Yeah.
And was working for a chain of grocery stores and a wholesaler up in Reno. And they opened a new chain of stores in the Sacramento area and relocated him. And so we moved down as a family and lived, like I said, in the Pocket area. I'm guessing about 3 years. And then we moved out to Orangevale and we lived there all through my teenage years.
And what does it mean to you to be from Orangevale? If you had to describe to somebody.
Probably a little slower lifestyle than from the city.
Yeah.
Very stable.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't move. A lot of the same neighbors year in and year out. I guess stability more than anything else.
And what's going on there? I don't even think I've ever been there. So is it a bunch of farms?
What's going on there now?
Yeah.
Tell you the truth, I haven't been to Orangevale in probably 15 years myself.
Yeah.
My brother still lives out in that area. He frequents that area. To be honest with you, it hasn't changed much. That much I know.
Yeah.
But to what extent, I have no idea. No idea.
So when your dad was in the wholesale business, were you interested in that as a kid?
No, not really, not at all.
Yeah.
As probably the first time my dad was working for a group of grocery stores called Farmers Market.
Yeah.
He was a retail clerk. He basically was a checkout counter, cash register guy, as well as a store manager, maintaining inventory and stuff. My brother and I, when we were 8, 9 years old, they used to let us come in every once in a while on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And they would put us upstairs in this leftover old archaic inventory room, and our job was to dust it and clean it up.
I was going to say you were going to throw produce around.
Nope.
No.
Didn't really get involved with produce at all until after I finished college. My dad had just started Produce Express.
Yeah.
And when I graduated from college, that's when I started produce or got into produce.
And what was your mom doing the whole time?
My mom was... The whole time, she actually was a waitress at Denny's when my dad opened Produce Express.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, she started doing the books and answering the phone calls, clearing the recorder at night, basically doing all the invoicing for my dad as he started up. It was basically her doing the office end of it and him doing the selling as well as delivery of all the product. I was a senior in high school the day he started Produce Express, and my brother, I believe, was a sophomore at the time, high school.
And Denny's nowadays is known as a late-night drinking establishment, but at one point it was like an all-American diner, correct?
Exactly, correct.
Yeah, so your mom was proud to work there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if proud is the right word, but she worked there. She worked very hard.
Yeah.
She mostly worked nights. It was a good way for her to work, earn an income, and still take care of us kids while my dad was working during the day because she was working at night, he was working during the daytime, so they could basically be a 2-income family and not have to worry about daycare and getting us back and forth. So.
And as a senior in high school, were you at the table for the gravity of the discussions about starting an own business, or were you doing your own thing?
I was basically playing baseball.
Yeah.
Was trying to find a scholarship. And that was my thing, was playing baseball. And my dad at the time had been working for a wholesale produce company. And at the same time, my grandmother passed away in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And he flew back to pay his respects. And when he got back, as part of the estate, he got a brand new Buick. Didn't even have 1,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
He drove it across the country. And when he got back into town, his employer was very angry at him that it took so long to get back. And my dad quit, basically opened up Produce Express.
And was that Buick the startup cash?
That was the funds to get things going. And my dad started with one truck. It was a rather large truck, an old beat-up truck. And at the time, what he did was he would go into the produce markets, mostly the one on 5th Street. He would guesstimate his customers' orders, load them on the truck, and then do almost like the bread companies or the beer companies do. He would go in and write his own orders, pull them off the truck, deliver them, and then whatever was left over at night, when he got back to the house, he would pull the truck in the driveway, the truck sticking out halfway into Woodmore Oaks Avenue or whatever, Woodmore Oaks Drive.
Yeah.
The truck sticking out, and my dad's got a big air conditioning unit that he plugs into the back of the truck. That was his refrigeration. That was his warehouse. And probably went on like that for probably the better part of a year. And his first employee was actually my pitching coach. I was at City College by then playing ball, and my pitching coach needed a job and wanted a job that he could work early mornings and then still be able to coach. So he started working for my dad, and that became his first driver.
Yeah. Now, were you a star at Sac City?
I was definitely not a star. I was a relief pitcher.
Well, did you know that you're still in the records?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually, myself and who is the athletic director now, Paul Carmazzi, owned the batting title. We both hit 1,000. I was 1 for 1 in my career, and so was Paul Carmazzi. But I pitched. I didn't hit.
So at what point in your career did you think, oh, baseball is not going to work out for me?
Well, I really knew probably as a junior in high school, maybe a senior in high school, I realized that professionally I was probably not going to play.
Yeah.
My height, I didn't throw real hard. That basically what got me through high school and was my success was basically just working harder than anybody else. But my God-given talent, as they say, I wasn't a superstar. So my goal was to get an education out of it, and I wanted to coach.
Yeah.
So when I went to City College, I became very involved in their camp programs, worked all summer long teaching little kids how to play ball, and on winter breaks, Easter breaks, teaching camps. We had private lessons where I would teach kids private lessons. It basically gave me spending money while I was in college, was teaching private lessons. And then I went to the University of Tennessee on a scholarship and wanted to get involved in coaching. So when I came back, after I graduated from Tennessee, I came back to City and was their pitching coach the first fall that I was back. There just wasn't enough money into it.
Yeah.
So I was working for my dad from 2 o'clock in the morning till about noon, and then hustling to City to get involved with practice. And then if I had time, I would teach pitching lessons at night to offset my income. I was 16, 18-hour days. And I kind of had an idea that I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to go back to school. Yeah. And so I quit coaching at City and started working more for my dad to save up money to go to law school. Law school never panned out because Produce Express really started growing. Yeah. Once my dad got off the delivery truck and was able to sell full time, we really started to take off. My dad was a good old boy.
Before we get there, did you return to Sac City because that's the only thing that you knew? Like, I know the SEC is very good at baseball now. So hypothetically, working at the University of Tennessee, that's a good resume, right?
Correct.
So is the reason why you moved back just to, be close to family, or did you have opportunities to coach elsewhere?
Well, I could have stayed at Tennessee and been a graduate assistant coach, which would have meant staying in school. And to be honest with you, I was burnt out on school. Yeah. I graduated in a little under 4 years. Basically took full units at City College. I was used to taking 18, 21 units because I wanted to finish in 4 years. And playing ball, studying as hard as I did, I just got burnt out on school, and I didn't want to be a graduate assistant coach.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into where I thought I would have an avenue to make a career out of coaching. And because of City's reputation, Coach Weinstein, Coach Carmazzi, they get a lot of players drafted. Almost all the players there, my freshman and sophomore year, just about all of us went on to play at 4-year schools. So I thought I had the best avenue to at least get involved with a college coaching job, if not a professional coaching job.
Now, is that still true that Sac City produces that much pro talent? Like, I only moved here 2 years ago, so I have no history with the program.
Yes, they still put out a lot of pro talent. More now than pro talent. I know they're still very involved. They have a lot of what they call feeder programs. They have a lot of connections with southeastern schools where they send kids to. A lot of scholarship offers. Basically, if you make it through your sophomore year at City College, you're going to get some type of scholarship to play ball at a 4-year school, which for most kids by then, they realize that, hey, you know what? I'm not going to make millions. I'll be lucky to get an education out of the thing.
So you're burnt out on school. You returned to Sac City. You're thinking about law school, but the business that your dad built is just growing way too quickly.
Yep, growing like a weed. He was a good old boy, Southern charm, real good salesperson, and the more he sold, the quicker we grew.
Yeah.
It wasn't but maybe 4 months after I started delivering so he could get out and sell that we realized, hey, we need somebody to take care of business, basically, and stay at the warehouse and to have a warehouse. So we rented our first warehouse, hired an employee to drive the truck so I could get out of it.
Yeah.
And the family joke is they sent me to school to learn how to embezzle.
Yeah.
And then my dad hired me, and I embezzled the company away from him.
Yeah.
I became basically the general manager with pretty much less than a year of produce experience, and just a business degree.
Yeah.
But between his efforts at selling and what little I knew about running a business, he taught me a lot, and the two of us worked our butts off to make it grow. And then my mom was more involved. She worked a lot. She worked a lot at night. My brother then started working for the company, and my two sisters became involved. And it was truly, truly a family affair.
Now, is that something in the beginning when it grew so quickly, right, and you were here, is that something that you felt obligated to do, or is it something that you wanted to do?
As far as
jumping in and helping your dad?
I wanted to do it. I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
What I really liked about the produce business is a lot of it happened early morning.
Yeah.
So I had my days. I could do whatever I wanted. I would go golfing, go watch a movie in the afternoon, go to a ball practice, play baseball. Pretty much had the rest of the day.
Yeah.
When the majority of people are working, I'm off. So you don't have to wait in lines at the movie theaters. You don't have to wait at the golf course. Getting the tea time was easy. It basically was just a different lifestyle. You just had to get up earlier to take advantage of it.
So I know what time you got here this morning. But for everybody else that's listening to this, what time did you get here this morning, sir?
This morning I got here about 15 till 1.
Yeah.
And that's typical start time, anytime from 12:30 to 1:30, depending on the day and who else is working. That's pretty much the start time for me.
And what's happening on this road at 12:30 to 1 in the morning?
A lot of drunk drivers.
Yeah.
Like everywhere else.
Yeah.
Basically, I come in at that time to start buying for the day. We run a report that'll tell me what we need to fill the trucks. What we don't have in the warehouse, I'll match the inventory to the report that tells me what's sold. So I buy the product to fill orders and also to forecast for the next day. So we have something for the drivers to start.
So did that University of Tennessee business degree pay off?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what do you
Without a
think
doubt.
you learned from that degree that applied right away?
Just the business, I guess the structure of it all, profit and loss. Took some marketing classes, took some finance classes. I always say I'm a numbers guy. Just the overall general business concept and how to run a business, how to make a profit. It was a well-rounded education. I started wanting to be an accountant major. I changed about a year into it to wanting to do marketing.
Yeah.
And finished up basically with the option of doing marketing or finance as my dedicated degree, and ended up finance was what I chose. Don't really know why. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
I didn't really plan on using my degree. My job here doesn't require a degree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the education that I brought, that I received from the University of Tennessee, as well as City College, that's where it pretty much all started. Definitely built the foundation for how I proceeded with my business.
Well, you're in the minority. Most people that I ask who get a business degree, I ask them whether or not it helped them run their business, and they're like, nope, everything changed. So you are in the minority.
Well, that's interesting to hear. Interesting to hear.
So your dad starts with one truck. It grows really quickly. What do you think led to that success?
Good people around us. We hired mostly people that we knew from baseball. Knew some people from delivering to restaurants, which made great employees because they knew the other side of the business, the receiving the product, the ordering the product. Had some good people that we hired early on, really good people that helped us grow. We worked hard. There also was I don't want to say there was a shortage of distribution companies in Sacramento, but there was definitely a shortage of service-oriented distributors. And that was something my dad really prided himself on. He really believed in the service end of it, that theoretically we all pretty much have the same product or had access to the same product. The biggest thing to set him apart was he was willing to do it 7 days a week. No minimum orders, run around doing whatever he needed to do to earn their business day in and day out. And I think that's what really set him apart. And really, as we grew, we kept those same fundamentals. As we grew, we kept doing the same thing. We just kept growing on the idea, making it a little better, expanding our product line. But without a doubt, the service end of it is what set us apart from Brand X or our competitors, if that be what you call them.
Now, I've met many entrepreneurs like your dad that says yes to everything, right? And he wants to put customer service first, okay? Eventually, those entrepreneurs learn, though, that you can get burned out pretty quickly saying yes to everything and providing service 7 days a week. So did your dad learn throughout his career a time to step back?
He never did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
But he never did. He would never say no. If he had to get out of bed at 10 o'clock at night and run get an order for the Holiday Inn on Madison, he would.
Yeah.
He'd bend over backwards, whatever a chef needed. It didn't matter if he was in Folsom and somebody in Roseville called. He'd drive all the way across town to get a flat of mushrooms. He wouldn't say no. He'd do whatever it took. Where the business side of me said, hey, I can't do that all the time.
Yeah.
If it happens once in a while, okay, but we can't make it a habit. We have to put a few more parameters on this thing. It's not 24/7. You call and I run and fetch it. So my dad never would say no.
Yeah.
But eventually, especially as we grew, we had to define the parameters a little bit more.
Now, I don't know the history of your company, but what did produce look like when you first opened? So there was a time in this country where all produce was local, right? And then with grocery stores, et cetera, then it started to get commercialized, and we started importing goods. So what did Produce Express look like when it first opened its door? Was its mission local produce from day one?
Actually, no. We basically bought off the market. There's a market on 5th Street as well as one off of North B at the time, where there are several wholesale produce distributors that mostly dealt with retail companies like Farmers Market, Safeway, Albertsons, the startup company Rayleigh's, things of that nature. That's what their bread and butter was the retail side. And then they would use restaurants to fill their trucks up. So the restaurants basically paid the bills, and where the volume of the product was moved was on retail. And as retail stores grew, they got away from buying from other wholesalers and became their own wholesaler, like Rayleigh's and Bel Air are doing now, where they have their own warehouse. Produce Express basically bought whatever the customers wanted. Once I started taking over the office end of it for my dad, my mother and I were doing the office work. He started going to the San Francisco market. And that was a game changer because it offered area chefs a way to get specialty product overnight. They could literally call at 1 o'clock in the morning and order some exotic wild mushroom that nobody in Sacramento had in stock. My dad would pick it up in San Francisco, drive it back to Sacramento, and deliver it to the chef at 8 o'clock in the morning. No one else could do anything of the such.
And most of the chefs at the time, right, were San Francisco products. So Biba had a place in San Francisco.
Correct.
Perrier had a place in San Francisco. So they were used to using those products.
Right, exactly. And so that was a true game changer, was not only now all of a sudden the service key, but the product line that we offered just was unmatchable because we had access to everything on the city market. Just about everyone in Sacramento bought off the San Francisco market, but they relied on outside trucking to bring product to them, which meant it couldn't get on that day's delivery. So you would have to give them 48 hours, 72-hour notice to get things. And with us, you could literally, like I said, order it on the recorder at 1 o'clock in the morning and boom, it's there for you to do breakfast the next day. So that was a true game changer for us. It was basically expanding our product line.
So your dad was the Corti brothers of restaurant produce.
To some extent, exactly. He had a bigger menu than anybody else had. Because he had access, he had a way to get it back and forth, and that was him. He would leave our house at 11 o'clock, midnight, and drive to San Francisco, and was there at 2 o'clock in the morning waiting for me to call and tell him what to buy. And spend a couple hours buying off the market, turn around, drive back, get here at 6 o'clock so we could get it on the trucks for that morning.
Now, obviously, that attracted you customers, but you're the numbers guy and the business guy. And I know with technology today, it's a little bit easier to keep track of all those products. But back then, how in the world did you know what your dad was doing was ultimately profitable for you?
We both had a sharp numbers mind, and a lot of things were processed in the head. He would quote me a price, and it was etched in stone, and I remember the price. And you're right. Today's technology allows me to have thousands of items, where at the time we were literally dealing with hundreds, if not fewer. But a lot of it was, communicating with him. We had the first Nextel phones in Sacramento. We walkie-talkie together, so we could get an instant response. But the communication with him was key, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Now, I was going to ask you the question whether it was weird to take over after your dad, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've pretty much had the same position since year one.
Correct.
That you have now. So it wasn't weird at all.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Not really. No.
So is that the reason why you hired Jim? Because it sounds like your dad was the sales guy.
As my dad got older, he continued to sell, but also became a bill collector. Because as we grew, it was more and more obvious that we had to worry about collecting the finance end of it.
Yeah.
But he was also running back and forth to San Francisco. He was basically doing whatever we needed him to do. So we needed a full-time salesperson. We had one former driver that we had basically promoted into sales. And I personally felt that we really needed somebody that was in tune to the kitchen, that had some chef experience. And that's how we hired Jim Mills. Jim refused to play by the rules everybody else did.
Yeah.
Jim would not call in his order the night before. He would not place his order on a voicemail. He wanted to talk to somebody no matter what time it was.
Yeah.
So we bent the rules for Jim. He called me every morning between 6 and 7 o'clock with his produce order and expected it there by 8 o'clock. So he got some very personal service.
Yeah.
I got to know Jim very well over the phone just by taking his order every day. He didn't want to give anybody his order. He wanted to talk to me because I knew what we had. And basically, him and I had a daily relationship.
Yeah.
His driver, John Northcutt, at the time, who is still with our company, now he's our bill collector. John was his driver every day. Him and Jim had a good relationship. John would let him know, hey, this looks really nice that I saw in the warehouse.
Yeah.
He would even bring him samples or take stuff to him. But Jim was... he was a very big customer that was key to the entire Gary's group, who was just growing as a franchise.
Well, let me ask you this question. So I just got done reading Eric Repair's book, and he worked for Robichon. And at the time, Robichon persisted that all the produce looks the same. So he would send the delivery drivers back like 3 times a day. So was Jim that much of a dictator? Would he make your produce drivers come 3 times if the produce didn't look like what he wanted it to look?
No. Jim actually was more on taste than appearance. He didn't care if it didn't look the greatest. If it had blemishes, the big thing with him was that it had flavor.
Yeah.
He wanted us to find local corn. He didn't want just any old corn that we could get at the produce market.
Yeah.
He wanted local corn. He became what they call now the godfather of local produce because he wanted stuff to be fresher, not because it looked better, but because it tasted better. It had a better flavor profile. That was his key. We started carrying heirloom tomatoes. We started carrying what we call today a vine-ripe tomato or true vine-ripe tomato because that's what Jim requested. He wanted us to be the farmer's market like people go to shop now. He wanted us to bring that type of product to his restaurant on a day in and day out basis. So and my dad started trying to find those little type things.
Is that something that you wanted to do, though? Was it ultimately profitable for you to do that?
Absolutely it was because nobody else was doing it. And if we could do it and offer it to other customers, for instance, the Gary's in Folsom, we could offer them the same product. That's something that nobody else could offer because they weren't set up to do it, which obviously builds loyalty with customers. So
why was nobody else doing it?
Because it's too labor intensive.
Yeah.
Most things like an heirloom tomato or a true vine-ripe tomato, you have to keep your inventory moving too quick. You pretty much have to have the product sold within a 24, 48 hour at tops period, or that flavor profile starts breaking down the other way. So somebody really has to have inventory control, and the other companies just couldn't do it. It's just something that they're not set up to do from a buyer to warehouse, from warehouse to delivery driver. It just takes too long for them to do it.
And was there a big demand other than Gary's back in the day? So I know, like Alice Waters, right? That's Berkeley in 1971. But it doesn't seem like the farm to fork stuff. Like it always happened with a couple restaurants, but it doesn't seem until recently, right, that people are really worried.
Recently, it's
Want
really
local
became
produce.
a buzzword. I would say the last 15 to 18 years,
Yeah.
it's gained a lot of momentum to where it's mushroomed to where it is today. As the Perigary chefing tree or the other restaurants like Biba's, as chefs moved on from their location and went to other locations, that idea of making their food a little better, flavor being a key component, and they could charge a little higher price as long as they had a flavor profile that set them apart from your corporate restaurants. That's what they were after. California cuisine was the buzzword when I started. It was California cuisine.
Yeah.
What does that really mean?
I don't know.
Nobody really knew, but it sounded good. It sounded like California was the only one that had spring mix. Well, we weren't. We just perfected it or grew a lot of it because of the Salinas area. But California cuisine, I mean, I don't think anybody could really define it other than...
Yeah, I talked to Rick at the Waterboy, and I told him that California cuisine to me was using the produce in your backyard. And then I come from the South, so the chefs that I talked to in the South, they said Southern food comes from the produce in your backyard. So what's the difference between those two? And it seems like that was always cooking, right?
Right.
Was using the produce from your backyard.
That's what the most talented chefs do.
Yeah.
Use the ingredients that surround them.
Now, you can correct me if you're wrong. You don't do too many of these interviews. So,
I don't.
Yeah. So the way the media portrays Produce Express is there was a version of Produce Express before you hired Jim, and there was a version of Produce Express after you hired Jim. Does that sound correct to you?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I think Jim helped steer us in a direction. I think he helped bring a lot more local farmers to the forefront, probably than I can imagine us ever dealing with.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're a whole lot different. It would have been a whole lot different. As we've grown, we've expanded our line. We're carrying Colombian chocolate. That has nothing to do with farm to fork.
Yeah.
We're carrying Colombian chocolate because we have customers request us to carry chocolate. We've found a chocolate that we think fits our profile as far as being a little different, not being a mainstream label, and we can make profit selling it.
Yeah.
So that's why we've added it, not because it's farm to fork. And I think that's one of the things we've continued to add. I got a farm to fork story for you that really didn't involve Jim.
Yeah.
A gentleman named Rob DiNapoli showed up one day at Produce Express. He said, I got canned tomatoes. Do you have any interest in canned tomatoes?
Yeah.
I said, you know what? Yeah, I'm very interested because I think we can sell them to restaurants. Jim thought, nah, we want fresh produce. We're not canned tomato people. Well, today we probably sell close to 1,500, maybe 2,000 cases of canned tomatoes a month that we would have never sold had we turned Rob DiNapoli away. DiNapoli happens to manufacture or can his tomatoes in Lodi.
Yeah.
So he's a local source. He's a processor and has become one of our big inventory sources and a selling point for our company. So the farm to fork thing isn't just because we were looking for local fresh fruits or fresh vegetables. It's also because we were promoting community-wide products.
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of evolved in and year out. We've continued to grow our product line. That is one of our first goals, is to try to source it locally.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's not a local source for chocolate.
Yeah.
So we found a Colombian source for chocolate.
Well, and the hidden secret about this community, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have 1,200 some clients, and only about 200 of them are interested and the local food?
We actually have, right now, we have closer to 1,800 active accounts. I would say the percentage of local buyers is probably closer to 20%.
Yeah.
That would like to buy local. I think more of them would buy local if given the choice between a local and a non-local product. A lot of times what we carry happens to be local, so it's kind of forced on them a little bit. And more of them are capitalizing on it as farm to fork. The buzzword of farm to fork becomes more and more important. But even now we're finding the pizza guys of the world, the beach hut delis of the world, that are local franchises, local corporate entities trying to capitalize on the farm to fork. For instance, Pizza Guys has started using a spinach on their pizza. And our major spinach source is Field Fresh Farms out of the Salinas, Watsonville area. Depending on what your parameters of local are, for a lot of people, the Salinas, Watsonville area is considered local. So for the Pizza Guys, they're now offering something with a farm to fork twist, a local twist that they never offered before. And that is to capitalize on what our area, our region sees as a buzzword in farm to fork.
Now, that's good for you, but for restaurants that capitalize on things like farm to fork, right? That's the way they market themselves. That's different from chains. What advice would you give those folks? So even like Seasons 52, which is funded by the Olive Garden Corporation, right? I don't know if they're a client of yours, but they've even done the local to separate themselves.
Correct. They do buy some things from us, mostly local and specialty items. Other purveyors don't have. In reality, it's easier to go farm to fork than most restaurateurs think. For instance, if you want to be farm to fork, use DiNapoli ketchup. Make a great ketchup. It's a local source. So now on your menu, you can put local DiNapoli ketchup. An item as simple as that. You don't have to use Heinz 57. You can use DiNapoli local ketchup. We are in such a unique area with so many food products available to the Sacramento area, to the Sacramento region, that other places have no access to or have a much more difficult access to the variety of fruits, vegetables, dairy, canned processed goods. I mean, you name it, there's so many things that a restaurant can capitalize within 150 mile radius, that it's easier to go farm to fork than you really think if you just think a little bit outside the box. And if you have purveyors or vendors that are bringing you that type of product. That at times you can find a cheaper alternative, but not necessarily the better alternative if you want to go local.
Is that what the 80% of the restaurants that are not doing local ultimately doing? They're just picking price point?
No, actually, I think, honestly, most of those restaurants, their menu just doesn't dictate going local. The Subways have a lot tougher time going local. The small delis, they're using lettuce, onions, and tomatoes. There's not many items they can really feature unless they do specials on a daily basis. And that's what the way I try to encourage people is to do a farm to fork special, to do something that's locally special. Use a local yogurt for breakfast in the morning. Use a local cheese on a sandwich. Use heirloom tomatoes when they're in season instead of regular red tomatoes. Set your menu apart as well as feature something local. And it's just that one menu item that can drag people in off the street. But it breaks the monotony of, you know what, it's a ham and cheese sandwich every day. Well, you know what, today you got a BLT with a Ray Young heirloom tomato. Changes things up a little bit. Doesn't require you to buy a whole lot different. Now you just buy a case of tomatoes. And instead of doing ham and cheese, you use the Same bread. You can even use a local baker to do a local bread. You can feature that local bread, local cheese, heirloom tomato, even local bacon if you really wanted to. And spin that, make it more attractive to the customers that come in and see you every day, especially downtown where so much of it is business driven, meaning the office businesses around the area that keep the restaurant hopping both day and night. Create something different. Put something different on your menu to attract people in.
Now, I don't know your industry. Are you the sole player in terms of providing local produce to restaurants, or are there other distributors in the area?
All the distributors in the area, to some degree, have local. Some of them are doing it better than others. I think we do it better than anybody, just because we have a little different pulse to it. We have a bigger connection. I don't try to mainstream every product we have to the corporate world, because that's not our type of clientele. Other companies, their bread and butter is export. Other companies are retail. We're strictly driven by food service. So our goal is to get them whatever they need. And I just think our efforts to bring as many local companies, whether they're farmers, processors, manufacturers, as many local businesses as we can into our vendor list, it's something different than everybody else's. A lot of places are price driven. Us, not so much. It doesn't have to be just about price. It may be a little more expensive to use the Napoli canned tomatoes than Stanislaus, for instance. But the Napoli is our chosen brand.
So do you see things like U.S. Foods, and I forget what the other big corporation
Sysco?
one. Do you see them as competitors, or what you're doing is so much different?
I believe what we're doing is so much different. Sure, they're competitors in terms of they take some of our fresh produce business away. They may have cheaper iceberg lettuce today. They may have cheaper onions today. They may have cheaper lettuce today. So it takes away a sack of onions. It takes a sack of onions off of our delivery that day. But day in and day out, I think we do it better than they do. I think our product's fresher than theirs is. We are definitely available to a restaurant more. We're offering 7 days a week delivery, whereas U.S. Foods and Sysco is 2, maybe 3 days a week to most restaurants. Most of our accounts like to get daily produce. And so we're a little more available. The way we load our trucks, the driver loads his own truck and becomes like a sales rep, an extension of our sales staff to the customer. So they get to know the driver. The customer gets to know the driver, can express their wants, their likes, their dislikes, to make sure their order is basically created how they want it created. And there's a friendship, a loyalty in knowing the person that's there every day. Whereas with the bigger corporations, Sysco, U.S. Food Service, General Produce, you may not know your driver that comes in every day. It may be a different driver. With us, there's a little more routine to it, a friendly face, somebody that's used to dealing with your order that says, you know what, he doesn't use small tomatoes, he wants great big tomatoes. So that's what we're saying.
And the big difference, right, is a really angry chef can't drive right onto your lot and chew you out if he wants to. And he really can't do that with U.S. Foods, right?
Nope, cannot do it. Cannot do it.
So if a local farm wants to distribute their products through you, how does that work? Do they just knock on your door and be like, this is what we grow, and then you go from there? Or how does farms get their produce sold through you?
We get a lot of phone calls, especially early in the spring. Usually the farm has an idea of what they want to grow or what they have grown in the past, and they're looking for somebody to help them distribute. What we will do is, if we don't know that person, if that person is not on our radar already, so to speak, Jim Mills or soon to be Scott Rose and Susie Marty, the other members of our sales team, will go out and visit that farm, make sure that their practices are safe and what we're looking for to join our team. And then we find out what they want to grow, what they've been accustomed to growing. A lot of times it's a first year farmer, or it's somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience, and they say, I want to grow heirloom tomatoes.
Yeah.
Well, we've already got an heirloom tomato provider. We don't need another heirloom guy. We need a melon guy. So what do you think about growing melons? Or what do you think about growing red corn or
And at
lettuce
this point,
products?
they've already grown the heirloom tomatoes.
Right.
Yeah.
And usually that ends up that there's 20 heirloom tomato growers. That's why when you go to the farmer's market on the weekend, everybody's got heirloom tomatoes. Well, we're looking for somebody that can provide us with a consistent quantity of a product that we can offer to all of our customers. So it can't be somebody that has blueberries for one weekend and then they're done. It has to be a 3-4 week, maybe 4-month period of having product, so we can market it. Our customers can put it on their menu. They can get used to using a product. The farm establishes a name for themselves, like a Ray Young or a Del Rio Botanicals, Full Belly Farms, River Dog. These are all well-established farms that over the years have built a reputation as having a consistent product, knowing that every fall we're going to start King Richard's leeks for potato and leek soup. Everybody knows we'll have them from River Dog. So it's an established product, an established brand that chefs look forward to. That's the type of farm we want to build the newbies into. It's just depending on whether they want to diversify their products, if we can find a niche product that'll make a name for them. But if everybody grew heirloom tomatoes, half the farms would be out of business because they end up beating up over each other over price. Nobody ends up making any money.
And over the years, how many new farmers have gone through your door? So has it increased or decreased? So I just talked to the owner of Two Rivers Cider, and he said most of the apple orchards are going away because they're building condos on farmland instead of farms. So how many new farmers are showing up through your doors?
I would guess we add probably 5 or 6 a year, maybe more. Probably 2-3 of those fail. They either didn't grow enough product or they're inconsistent product. Perhaps the growing season was just not long enough for them to grab a hold. But every year we increase by a couple. I agree that a lot of the small to middle farms are going by the wayside. It's very difficult work. As the older generation gets older, the younger generation, for the most part, does not want that work. They want the push-button society. They want the computer job for the state. They're not interested in getting that dirty and working that hard, getting up those hours. But there are still a few people that do. And the farm-to-fork movement has actually helped that to a degree because even a small farm can make a run at it if they have a consistent product that they basically become known for, whether it's Twin Peaks and Stone Fruit or Placer Mountain mandarins, things of that nature where people recognize the name. They understand that, hey, every fall we're going to get mandarins from Placer County, and they look forward to that time of year. That's the key, is building that consistent not year-round, but seasonal product that people hook into. And not getting involved in something that's so competitive, you really don't stand a chance of living year to year off.
So you're in a unique position where you're selling other people's products. So when the product is not good, it's not necessarily your fault because you're getting it from somewhere else. But do all the chefs understand that? Like, I've looked at some of your reviews, and most of them are positive. But every now and then, there's some token chef that's like, X product was bad, and they blame it on you. So how do you view that relationship?
Well, that's a touchy one, because what we try to do for the most part is the product we try to deliver on a day in and day out basis is product that's ready to be consumed that day and maybe 2 days going forward.
Yeah.
But most chefs order product that morning expecting to use it that day and the following day.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want product that's going to have 3 or 4 days shelf life. They want stuff that's ready now.
Yeah.
So chefs that are not familiar with our product line, that come from out of the area or came from a restaurant that's buying from somebody else, may be more in tune to buying things a couple of days ahead of time.
Yeah.
That are not as ripe or not ready to eat, that they've got to sit on the shelf for a day or two to let ripen up. Or maybe they're just used to a hard tomato
Yeah.
that they're going to slice hard.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a flavorful tomato. That's a hard tomato that goes through your slicer. That's not the best tomato to put on a burger. The tomato to put on a burger, you may have to slice it by hand.
Yeah.
So they got to get used to our product line to some extent. And I think that's what makes our driver program unique, is our drivers get to know those wants and dislikes of a chef. And if somebody is willing to teach our drivers or willing to educate our drivers, hey, this is what I'm looking for, then our drivers can duplicate that. We have that product. We have that underripe tomato here that Subway buys. That doesn't mean Bibas wants that same tomato.
Right.
So we can find a happy medium. We can find a product that will make almost any chef happy, as long as we know what they're looking for, as long as the communication is there. But there's a fine line between ripe and overripe. You're talking a matter of days.
Yeah.
You're talking a matter of hours. And if a chef doesn't use it right away, then he thinks we're at fault. Whereas if we would have had a little more communication, if we knew you were looking for green bananas, not ripe bananas, maybe we'd both be happy. And that's truly what I think is unique about our drivers and the program that we've developed, is they get to know the chef. The chef can say, hey, this is what I'm looking for in my bananas. And our guys try to duplicate that on a 7-day-a-week basis or a 6-day-a-week basis to try to ensure that they get what they're looking for.
So how does pricing work with local farms? So I grew up in Kansas, so we saw the wheat prices on the local news. And I imagine with exports, most of the prices are the same because they're coming from the same place. But how does that price negotiation work with you and the farmer and then you to the restaurant?
And most of the farmers dictate their price. They know what it costs to grow something based off of seed costs, their labor costs, machinery, equipment, previous crop failures, whatever it happens to be. For the majority, most of them will tell you, hey, it's $20 for a leek today.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. I'm not a big haggler. I don't like to haggle with the local farmers.
Yeah.
We try to pay most of them cash because we know that's what makes the world go around.
Right.
And that's what they're looking for. So we try to keep their payables at a minimum. But most of them establish the price based off of what does it cost for me to get the product. Then there's others that we can say, you know what, mini Olas on the market today are $23. You want $40. I'd really like to carry your product, but I can't justify a $17 spread. So we've got to shrink the gap here, or I can't use the local product. I've got to use the conventional product. It also depends a lot whether they're organically grown or conventional grown. Obviously, organically grown requires a little more attention, requires a lot more effort in the fields to keep it organic. But for the restaurant world, for the most part, they don't care whether it's organic or not. So we have a very difficult time selling everything as organic. Usually we have to offer it as conventional. If it's organic, that's a bonus. But if it's conventional and local, then they're happy.
The reason why chefs don't care, right, is organic is another marketing term, right? So there are some local farmers that are organic, but they can't afford the license.
Actually, there are quite a few that have that same mentality as far as their way of growing product, sustainable agriculture, what have you. The biggest reason that chefs don't particularly want everything organic is generally the price point. The rule of thumb when I started in the industry was twice the price. So if you're buying a $20 case of tomatoes and you want it organic, now it's a $40 case of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Your food costs are going through the roof. Well, in order to offer an organic sandwich, you got to go far beyond the tomato. You have to have organic meat. You have to have organic bread. You have to have organic mayonnaise. Where does it stop? Well, if that's what you're going to promote, then everything has to be organic. Well, if you double your food cost on everything, now that $8 sandwich has become $16. You're not going to get too many repeat customers at 16. So for most restaurants, unless they're in a retreat, in a event area, or where you're a destination point, it's difficult for an all organic restaurant to survive. It's almost impossible for them to survive. Some of them, the better ones, will probably concentrate on one menu item and offer an organic salad and concentrate on those items and try to make one item on their menu as organic as possible. But for the most part, organics just don't work on the food service end because of the price point.
Do you sometimes look at farmers and when they give you a price, you raise your eyebrows? So, for example, often when I go to the Sunday farmers market, I go and I see the prices and I'm just like, you have to be underselling yourself. Let me give you more money. I'm worried about you. So does that happen?
Yeah, but, it happens on all levels. The commodity that probably boggles my mind more than any other is onions. Onions generally are under $10 a bag year-round.
Yeah.
We sell them in the low teens. The broker that sells them gets $1 to $2 a bag. The company that delivers them gets $1 to $2 a bag. The end result is the guy growing onions probably gets about 8 cents a pound for the onions.
Yeah.
He's got to till the land, plant the seed, take care of it, water it, dig it up, clean it off, harvest it, bag it, then store it for 6 months to make 8 cents a pound. And it just boggles my mind. Why would somebody want to grow an onion?
Yeah.
If I told you to grow anything at 8 cents a pound, you'd say, you know what, I'll pass.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. But year in and year out, there's more onion growers than the market can sustain. That's why the price stays where it's at. Is it's, a relatively easy commodity to grow, I guess. And it just ends up being a low price leader. But it just, like you said, you're going, man, I'm underpaying. I always think that about onions. The onion guy's never getting a fair shake. The carrot guy never gets a fair shake. But from the organic standpoint, the local standpoint, the specialty standpoint, quite often I wonder, wow, who's going to pay you $5 a pound for that? But people do. So it's got both spectrums.
Now, is it understood in this region that the way you sell your produce is through distributors? So, for example, I came from a hippie town in North Carolina before this. So it was not uncommon for a small-time farmer to knock on the back door of a restaurant and be like, this is what I have today. Can you buy this? Da-da-da-da. Does that still go on, or is it understood that the way that you sell your produce is through distributors?
No, there's still a lot of that goes on. A lot of the little farmers, like River Dog, has a truck that goes through the Sacramento area and delivers to different restaurants like Waterboy. Even though they supply us, they also deliver direct to restaurants. A lot of the little farms do. Mom and pop, little tiny farms, bring tomatoes, fresh herbs, things like that. It's just more difficult to do that because to stop your truck at so many restaurants when you're, say, offering basil. How much basil can Waterboy use? They're not going to buy 100 pounds of basil from you. If they buy 10 pounds, thank your lucky stars. The other issue is money. Back in the day, most restaurants paid cash for everything.
Yeah.
Now they're getting paid by credit cards, so they want to pay their bills by credit cards. Now that little farmer that just sold 10 pounds of basil, he's got to carry an invoice around for 30 days, wait for Waterboy to send him a credit card, then process the credit card. So instead of selling 10 pounds of basil, he really only sells 8 because the credit card fees are going to eat it up. And he isn't going to get paid for 30 days, so now he doesn't have money to pay his help. So it's more difficult for them on a small scale to absorb those type of costs. Whereas if that same farmer brings me 100 pounds of basil and lets me stop at 20 different restaurants selling 5 pounds, I take a lot of that expense out of it for him. So obviously for Riverdog, he'd much rather make one stop, sell me 100 pounds, than to travel to 10 different restaurants, waiting to get paid from 10 different places.
Now, the majority of the farm to table and farm to fork YouTube videos and movies made about farm to fork, as it has a chef walking through a farmer's market and he picks up a piece of produce and smells it and then he gets inspired and cooks a dish. Do you wish, like, how many of your clients actually do that versus shouldn't they be shooting a movie where they're looking at a Produce Express truck and they pick up a vegetable off a truck and then they get inspired?
I actually think a lot of the inspiration comes from places like the farmer's market.
Yeah.
A lot of discovery comes from places like the farmer's market, where you can walk around and see product that you normally wouldn't see. And then ask your distributor, can you get this for me, and can you get it for me on a regular basis? Because most farmers markets are a 1 day a week type of thing, where they're in one area every Saturday or every Wednesday. Restaurants need a more reliable source than that. The other thing with farmers markets, if the weather's bad, the farmers might not show up.
Yeah.
So restaurants are looking for a more reliable daily source. But shop at the farmer's market, they may see purple artichokes for the first time that, hey, now I want to use purple artichokes because I saw them there. Looks great. Can you get me purple artichokes? Well, that starts a whole new conversation. Yeah, I can get you purple artichokes. Del Rio grows them. So we get them purple artichokes, red sunchokes, whatever it happens to be. So, yeah, it's a good source for changing up from the mainstream. And it's product you may never see. You wouldn't see it at Rayleigh's. You're probably not going to see it at Safeway. So the farmer's market's the best source to see something, take it home, experiment with it, and you never know. And so it can be very inspiring. I know for Mills today, he loves going to the farmer's markets. He loves going to the Ferry Building in San Francisco because he sees new product. The industry evolves every year. New products come out every year. We see different things. Artisan lettuce, Little Jim lettuce, just different items that grow over time that all of a sudden become fashionable or become desirable. For instance, Brussels sprouts. We're selling more Brussels sprouts now than we've ever have.
Yeah.
It's the new vegetable. Now, Brussels sprouts have been around forever, but a lot of people have rediscovered them. A lot of people now like them.
Yeah.
So it's something different. Well, you can see different sizes, shapes, colors, Brussels sprouts on a stalk that you never see before if you look at a farmer's market. So things like that help the creativity, help the industry continue to grow, and keep the farmers interested as well because they want to grow what people want. Yesterday I got a call from Ray Young. Ray Young started growing winter squash for us because once he was done with heirloom tomatoes, he usually grew pumpkins. Well, pumpkins aren't as lucrative as selling winter squash. So he started growing winter squash. Last year he called me and said, hey, what kind of winter squash do you need? And I said, delicata. Everybody wants delicata. All right. He grew delicata. Wow, you're right. We sold a ton of delicata. So he called me yesterday and said, how much delicata do you want me to grow? That was great last year. Let's grow delicata. 3 years ago, Ray Young didn't know what delicata squash was. But that's what people want. That's what the farmer wants to grow. And it's just a matter of finding that item that, hey, this can make my winter. growing that one item.
Yeah, I don't know how farmers do it, and I don't know how cheesemakers do it. Like, they start making cheese on a bet that this is going to pay off 3 years from now, and then,
Right.
of course, when it does pay off, they sell out so quickly, and it's not like you can make cheese quickly
Yep.
and age it like that, so that's just insane. I know that you've had the same position here since after year one, but when the company changed hands, did you have a new vision for Produce Express? Did you want to do anything differently?
Actually, the same principles were there. We just wanted to continue to grow, to provide for our families, as well as any families that joined us along the way. And our vision never really changed. Yeah, we've changed a lot, and we're not just meat and potatoes anymore, or tomatoes and lettuce anymore. Our product line's expanded. I used to say I'll never sell milk. I don't want anything to do with milk because it spoils too quickly, or there's too many kinds. Now we sell a ton of milk. We sell a lot of milk, a lot more than I ever imagined we would. Cheese? Oh, I remember the days when we used to go to cash and carry to pick up shredded cheddar cheese. And it was a delicacy.
Yeah.
That was something that was special for a produce company to pick up cheese for somebody. It was like, wow, way off the charts. I mean, I can remember customers in the foothills calling up and saying, hey, can you guys give me 5 pounds of shredded cheddar? My dairy company's not coming back for 10 days. So we'd go to cash and carry, pick them up 5 pounds of shredded cheddar cheese. Big deal. Now we sell a couple 100 pounds of it a day. And we once again, it's a Clover product, so it's a local product. Not only do we sell shredded cheddar cheese, but we sell a local one. And we have hundreds of cheese varieties that I would have never thought that it would become such a big percentage of our sales. That, quote, the non-produce items, although they're food related or fresh produce related in some way, have become such a big part of our business. But they really have, because other companies don't have them, or they don't have access to them as often or as frequent as we do. So that part of our business has really, really, really changed. I'd like to think that we still take care of our people, our employees, as well as we always have. That is our biggest asset. Our only asset, other than all the delivery trucks. We don't own this building. We're leasing this building. But truly hope we take care of the people that have led us to where we're at. We're very blessed with a good group of people. We continue to find good help. They almost self-recruit each other to come our way. Very fortunate in that regard. And I hope that people say, you know what, he's always taking care of the people that work for him. I hope that part never changes.
Now, you say you've learned the lesson from your dad to step back a little bit. But showing up at 1 in.the morning and then not leaving until 4, that's quite a day. So do you think you've learned to step back? This is that's a 14, 15, 16-hour day a day?
I have learned to step back a little bit. I'm not near as in control of everything as I used to be. I always used to say I was the hub in the center of the wheel. Not so much anymore. I'm still in the center, but I don't think things revolve around me like they used to. I don't know everything like I used to. I could quote you what we had in inventory off the top of my head, what this customer bought on a regular basis. I knew most of the prices in my head. Not so much anymore because we're too big. There's too many dynamics to it. There's employees that have been here for 3-6 months that I don't know as well as I should. That in the old days I would have got to know as well as I could. So I have taken a step back as far as I don't have that control like I used to. I don't know why I don't give up more time. I guess because I still like to think that I know more than I know. And that part of it, I still want to know everything. But I quite often tell my employees and I tell my family that my job, their jobs have an effect on people, a lot of people every day. We have 88 employees now at Produce Express, and if I'm late for work, it not only affects those 88 employees, but it affects the chefs out there, the truck drivers, the guy pouring coffee for my driver every day. It affects so many lives. Just one guy being late can have a domino effect. And so you have to have some responsibility. You have to own what you're doing. You have to feel like you're important in some regard. And I like to think that I am important and that I need to be here on a regular basis. One of the reasons I stay a little later every day is I like to be here when all the drivers come back.
Yeah.
So if I have a driver that's still out at Chico at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I feel like, you know what, I'm not going home till I know all the cattle's in the barn. I want all my stray herd. I want them all home. There's a lot of different reasons. I can't really pinpoint one, but
well, you love what you do.
yeah, I do. I really enjoy what I do. I believe in what we do here. I love working with the people that I work with. I quite often say I hate people, but everybody knows that's not true.
Yeah.
I like people. I don't like to talk much.
Yeah.
Today's a lot of talking for me. I spend most of the day on the phone, but I'm talking to people I really don't know that well, and so I can be a little different to each one of them. So I'm out of character most of the time. But it's every day is different. It's exciting every day. I really like what I'm doing. I really like the company that we've built, and I really truly believe in it.
So these are some Sacramento-based questions. What do you think it means to you to be an entrepreneur living in Sacramento right now?
California is a tough state to live in and be in business for yourself. There's a lot of regulations, constantly growing, over-regulated industries, especially the food industry now. The food safety aspect of it, the delivery aspect of it with the Air Resources Board, trying to control how we deliver that type of thing. I often say, it'd be a lot easier to do this in Reno, Nevada. Yeah. It would be, but we wouldn't have local produce because Reno, Nevada, the weather's not conducive to local produce most of the year. So it's got its pluses and minuses.
Well, and then there's federal laws, right? So the interview that you did do is about jalapenos and tomatoes back in 2008 when the FDA had a case of tomatoes from Mexico that had salmonella, and so did jalapenos. So they decided to put an FDA warning on all produce, even that produce did not come from Mexico, which does not make sense to me.
Nope. Yeah. It does not make a lot of sense to most people.
So there are plenty of articles about how Sacramento is going to grow quickly in the next 5 to 10 years, and there's a lot of articles being written about how Sacramento will be the next Oakland, California, or the next Portland, Oregon, and that young people will want to move here. So there are plenty of people reading those articles and thinking about business ideas. What advice would you give those folks / potential entrepreneurs before making the leap here to Sacramento?
Do your homework. Study the area you're going into, know the demographics, know what your business entails. Definitely research the regulations involved in it. Kick the curb, find out what your competitors who they would be, what they're doing in town. There's a lot of independent businesses in Sacramento. We're not a big corporate community, especially downtown. There's not a lot of corporate restaurants. There's not a lot of corporate businesses of any kind downtown that flourish. Sacramento likes the smaller business. The area likes a smaller down-home feel. That's what most of us support. That's what we're looking for. That's what we like. On a retail level, boy, the internet is tough to compete with right now. If you're looking to go retail, you better find out where your competition's coming from on the internet. But there's so many ways to research getting into business now, things that I would have never thought of, things that they didn't teach us in school that people have access to now. There's just so much more education, knowledge out there that you can get before you ever spend a dime, before you ever invest a dime in your future. Definitely do your homework. Definitely do your homework.
Do you think you would have started a business if it wasn't for your dad?
Eventually, I would have found my way into business myself, I believe. No matter what I did, I like being my own boss. I like tooting my own horn. I like to think I have a great work ethic that I don't know that I would have if somebody else were calling the shots. That's what I really liked about my dad is he pretty much let me call the shots. He steered me and guided me in the right direction, but he let me pretty much do things the way I wanted. And if I was wrong, he told me, hey, you can't do it that way. You got to do things this way, or this is why you can't do things that way. So I think even if it was coaching or what have you, I'd have probably ended up developing a baseball school where I taught kids one-on-one or something of that nature. Who knows? I'd have been a manager because I wouldn't have coached under somebody. I would have found my way into being business for myself. It's got a lot of things that make my workday very unique. Comes with a lot more pressure, comes with a lot more stress, comes with a lot more strings attached than working for somebody else. But I don't know if you call it being a leader, being a control freak. I called all of the above. So, but I think no matter what I did, I would have probably steered to where I was doing something for myself as opposed to making money for somebody else, so to speak.
Biggest fear in running the business now?
Biggest fear now. That's a good question because I haven't thought about that in a long time. I guess we're at a very stable point where I think we're stable. Probably the biggest fear would be letting my family down. Or letting those families down that are around us. The bigger we grow, the tougher it is to control. Fortunately, we've never had a catastrophic accident. We've never been involved in a food recall of that nature. Bigger companies than us have been drugged down by them. We've done the things the right way, I think, to where we've avoided those things. We've never had a major injury of an employee. We've never hurt somebody on the highways or anything of that nature to where it's put our company in risk. I guess that would be the biggest fear is basically having that negative effect on so many families if something were to go wrong. But I try not to think about things like that because there's so many ways that things like that could happen. If I thought about all of them, if I tried to stop all of those things from ever happening, we'd probably freeze ourselves up to where we couldn't do anything. We wouldn't have taken the chance moving into this building, going from 18,000 square foot to 50,000 square foot. We would have never taken those chances. And I don't say it's not that I'm not afraid of losing it all or losing our company. I'm more afraid of affecting lives that shouldn't be negatively affected.
Yeah, your industry scares me a little bit because you're relying on customers, which are restaurants, and most restaurants don't survive the first year. So do you just hedge your bets and just try to recruit as much as possible, knowing that you're going to lose clients along the way?
We know we're going to lose clients to attrition. We also know that in the Sacramento area, more individually owned restaurants are going to open up than they're going to close. And the more people put their own money into backing their own business, the harder they're going to fight. Whereas if it's a franchisee where somebody else is really calling the shots, they're not going to put out that effort. They can walk away from that loss and call it a loss and start all over. Where if it's their own hard-earned savings or their kids' college money that they borrowed off of his fund or whatever it happens to be, they're going to work harder. They're going to try to make it. Sure, you're going to lose some, but you're going to win more on. And the way we look at that is we hope we have just as many accounts that are around for 10 years to offset the accounts that didn't make it the first year. But most restaurants now, if they're going to fail, you can see it right away.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to see that, there's something broke in this formula.
Yeah.
Their business plan's not quite what they think it is.
Mm-hmm.
They better start tweaking it right away. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the flow of people, the menu items, the flavor of the food, the profile, whatever it happens to be, you can see without long that,
Yeah.
they ain't going to pay rent too long in this place.
Mm-hmm.
You can see just sheer numbers. What's going to happen. So you can start putting yourself in a position to where you don't get hurt as much.
One lesson you've learned since taking over the company that you wish you would have learned at the beginning that would have made your life easier?
Wow. I guess patience.
Yeah.
I've become very patient, almost to a fault. I don't like to fire people. I don't like to train new people. And I've become too patient in terms of letting people get away with things, not being a yeller and a screamer. Whether it's my own my own employees, somebody else's employees, customers of ours. I guess one thing that I've learned too well is to be too patient.
Yeah.
And it took a while for that because I was not a patient person. I was I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. I want to go. And it took a while to realize that, you know what? Take it easy. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Over time, it'll develop itself. Now, I see it happening. I don't freak out when a guy gets in a fender bender or somebody dumps a hand truck full of strawberries.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
3 last questions. First, do you have a Produce Express Little League empire? Like, do you sponsor Little League teams?
No, we don't. We're very seldom asked to sponsor Little League teams, very surprisingly. We do a little bit more with high school baseball.
Yeah.
Not just in this community, but other communities. For whatever reason, I know quite a few high school coaches, so we get more involved in the high school end of it than we do in the Little League end of it. I don't know why, but
yeah,
it's just one of those things.
Well, it seems like people need to call you. / you need to take some time off and go coach some Little League. So
I wish I had the time.
I had the time. So you never said that you thought you would sell milk. Cannabis just got legalized. There are bartenders in Denver putting cannabis-infused drinks on the menu, and apparently there's cannabis-infused food. So do you think you'll ever be a specialty supplier of cannabis for restaurants?
I don't see it working in our program.
Yeah.
But never say never. Never say never.
All right. We always end the show with this, which is one thing I find fascinating about the internet, is when something is on the internet, hypothetically, is on the internet forever. So someone could be listening to this 20 years from now, including yourself or your family. So is there anything that you would like to say to yourself or your family 20 years from now?
Thanks for putting up with me. Thanks for putting up with my schedule. For all those family members, without your support, without the support of the employees, we wouldn't have become the company we are today. And it's taken a lot of patience, not just on my end, but pretty much everybody involved. It's a team effort. It's a true team effort.
Anything else that we did not talk about that you wanted to talk about?
I probably haven't talked enough about my mom and her involvement.
Yeah.
My mom was a hoot, had more of an effect on my life, my growing up, than I ever thought she would have. I never considered myself a mama's boy. I was always dad's.
Yeah.
But my mom, her personality, her sense of humor, I hope I got a lot of that because she was a hoot.
And my guess is
she had a pretty big impact on Produce Express.
And my guess is you got patience from her.
I it wouldn't surprise me, although my mom wasn't a real patient person. So I don't think maybe I got it in an adverse way. Maybe I saw how impatient she was, and that's how I got patient, maybe. She wasn't very patient. She was a yeller and a screamer, but I think we respected her for that.
Okay. And then a lot of aspiring food entrepreneurs listen to the show, so if they're interested in working with you, how may they find out more information?
Come by and see us.
Okay.
Stop by and see us. We'd love to give you a tour. We'd love to get to know you. Whether you want to work here, you want to work with us as far as a restaurant, you want to buy our product, you want to sell us product, it doesn't hurt. Kick the door down.
Okay.
Come see us. Get to know who we are. We'd like to get to know who you are.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you.